Hello. In this video, we are going to see how to write a Python program, which is very similar to assignment number 2. It will have some basic expressions, input, output, and conditional statements. Okay, so I'm going to start with your document for assignment number 2, just so you know what you need to do. We have to have a planning document and we have to have a Python program. So there's a problem description, tells you what you need to do, some requirements, and what exactly you need to have in your Python program. So here is my sample document, which is very similar to your assignment. This is a program. It's a multi-input problem solving, meaning we read multiple inputs and we solve some problems. My program is called All-Consuming. We write a program that estimates your annual consumption of a commodity based on how much you consume a normal weekday and a normal weekend day. Okay, so you read from the user some item, chocolates, M&Ms, pretzels, napkins. How much do you consume on a weekday? How much do you consume on a weekend day? And based on that, we find the annual consumption per year, right? So here are some assumptions. The term week denotes 5 weekdays and 2 weekend days. That's what we mean by week. A year has 52 weeks. So it could be longer, yes, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say 1 year has 52 weeks. And you're given just integers. No need to worry about, 1.5 pieces of candy. Don't have to worry about that. Just whole numbers, integers. Okay. So then here are some requirements. We need to first prompt the user for the commodity, the item. Then we individually prompt them for 2 inputs. One is the quantity consumed on the weekday, quantity consumed on a weekend day. And based on that, we do some simple calculation to see how much have they consumed in 1 year. And then you check if the quantity is more than 1,000, then you output a message saying something humorous, oh, you consume too much, or you consume too little if it is less than 1,000. So we have some calculations to do. We have some conditionals to write, things like that. There are some notes you can read through, suggested algorithm. I also try to give you an algorithm that you can use. And the program runs. The sample run is an important part of your planning document. So if you look in your assignment, I tell you to have a planning document. So the planning document should be something like this. This part of your assignment is the planning document. You must have a sample run. When I run my program, how is it supposed to look? So here, there's a welcome message. The other thing that you should also look at is your style guide. The Python style guide tells you what all you need to do in order to have a program that will meet all the criteria, right? So the planning document section of this, which I believe there is one here somewhere, that tells you what kind of, what you need in your planning document, sample run. So here's something about the user interface, how should it look, and things like that. So the Python program requirements, for example, the planning document. You should have a planning document that says you must have a sample run. How does your program look when it is run? And then a pseudocode. Okay, so let's look at my sample. Here's my sample run. I have a welcome message. You must have a welcome message for the user. And what is something you consume daily? This is what I ask the user. Then the user types in something. Then I say, how much do you consume on a weekday? And how much do you consume on a weekend day? Get 2 numbers. And then you do some calculations. And this is like over 1,000. So I say, whoa, that's way too many paper napkins in 1 year. Now, here's another example. Again, the same welcome message. What do you consume? Pretzels. How many do you consume on a weekday? 0. How many do you consume on a weekend day? 1 per weekend day, right? So that's only 104 pretzels. Okay, that's a reasonable number of pretzels. So you output some message like that, right? So that is a sample run. And here's the sample planning document. You must have this as well, which is a series of steps that says what exactly we're going to do when we start writing a program. I'll put a welcome message. You declare a string called item consumed to read in the name of the item. Then you declare 2 numbers, weekday num, weekend num. These are our variables to read in the numbers. Then you have total num that I'm going to calculate, right? And what is something you consume daily? That is a prompt that, and then you read the item into this variable called item consumed. Then you ask them how much is consumed on a normal weekday. You read that into this variable. Then you ask them how much is consumed on a weekend day. You read that into this variable. And then you do your calculation. I even have the formula and everything written. And you put that into total num. And you check, you write an if statement that says if the total num is greater than 1,000, then, oh, I have a spelling error. You consumed such and such. And this comes from the calculation. This is what it's going to output. Okay? So that's the planning document. It completely gives us an idea of what we are supposed to do when we write a program. So now, in fact, I'm going to use this planning document. I'm going to write my program. So I'm in Replit, which is what we're all using, right? So you go to Replit, and I'm going to go here to my style guide. And I have a note in here that says what I need to have on the very top in the comments section, the header. So you must have a header that looks like this. Okay, so I'm going to go in there. I'm going to try something very similar. I have an author name. That's my friend there who has written the program, assignment, date, description. So let's try and do some of those. I'm going to put a hash that says that's the hash. I'm going to start by putting a hash here, and then my comments, author, my name, what does we have? What we have next in our style guide? Assignment, date, description. So assignment would be A02 sample, date would be 08/31/2020. I have description. I'm going to copy my description from here. It's much easier to do that. I'm going to copy that. You can add a few more things if you want. I'm going to copy it and put it in here and take that to the next line. Okay, and then I believe I have input. What's going to be the input for my program? A string and two numbers, and then my output, total number, which is a number, and a message. And what's the last thing? Input, output, sources. Yes, sources is very important to tell me or your teacher where you got help from. You can say none, not mine. Okay, now we can start writing our program. So I'm going to start with a main function. We always want to start with main, def main. Def is defined. Main is the name of my function. All programs are going to have a main function. And then we start writing our program here. So if you look at my assignment, go down to our planning document, it says output a welcome message, declare the string, item consumed. So I have a piece of my code here that I'm going to try and copy one line at a time so we can go through it. Yes, so print a welcome message to the user. Looks like that. So let's print it. Welcome, I have a comment. So print a welcome message to the user. And it says print something within double quotes. It's going to print whatever I have in there. Then my next step is to declare all my variables. So I'm going to say declare all my variables. And if you look in my assignment document, that's my second step. Declare all these variables. This is my pseudocode, right? Okay, declare all my variables. Then when you declare them, notice if it's a string, I put a double quote. If it's number, I put zeros. Okay, those are initializing. So you must declare your variables, make sure your variables all have meaningful names to them. And then let's have some spacing between our different sections. Then we want to read input from the user. So that's my read input section. So I'm going to read input from the user. And notice all these green lines, they'll eventually go away once we actually start using all of this data. Now, something to note for read input from user. is if it's a string. Anything that you read from the user is a string. So strings don't have to be converted. You read it, you put it directly into the item. Now, numbers, on the other hand, have to be converted to a number data type, which is an int. So I read from the user. Notice the parentheses are all very important. They have to match. Here's one set of parentheses, and here's the other set of parentheses for the int. So I convert it into an int and put it into weekday num. That's how much they consumed on a normal weekday. So that number goes into this variable. Then I ask them, how much did you consume on a normal weekend day? And again, I convert it into an int. That part is very important. And then I put it into weekend num. So now I have read everything from the user. Now go to my planning document. It says after I have read everything from the user, I must do some calculations. So let's copy. I have the section where I do calculations. So 2 lines. I have a comment that says do calculation, and I take my weekday num that I read from the user, multiply by 5 because 5 weekdays, multiply by 52 because 52 weeks in a year is what the assignment document says. Then you take weekend num, multiply by 2 because Saturday and Sunday, 2 weekends, days. And then I multiply that by 52. And I add the two together. Notice we follow all our operator precedence and parentheses and everything. And that gives me the total number of items consumed annually or per year. Okay. Then my assignment planning document says check if the total number is greater than 1,000 because we want to output a message. So here is the part that checks, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. So output to the user checks if total number greater than or equal to 1,000. Notice the colon, that's very important, and the indentation, very important. Print, make sure all of these are in your style guide. Make sure you follow them to get all the points. Print, you consumed, that's the string, comma, total num, that'll take this total num and put that number in here, comma, item consumed, how many items. So if this calculation brought up 104, it would say 104, whatever the user entered for item consumed, pretzels maybe, comma, then more string, per year. All of this is literally going to get output the way it is. Whoa, that's way too many item consumed. Maybe the user entered M&Ms, candy, whatever, in 1 year. So notice how all this data is separated by comma. Very important. You can use comma or you can use plus, which is a concatenation operator. But notice as this tells you in the notes, your assignment document says, where is it? Perhaps in my sample document. The notes. You can use the comma operator if you're building a string with multiple data types. If you want to build a string, you must use the plus operator. Okay, so we use the comma because I want to separate everything by all. They are all different data types, all the items that I'm separating, right? If you only have strings, then you can concatenate them with a plus. Okay, so if this is greater than or equal to 1,000, then we do this. Else, you do this, something else, right? You consumed. That is a reasonable number of items consumed. So this part is the same, but we say that's reasonable. It's not too bad, right? Okay, then after that, that's main. Main ends there. We have to call main. That's where the program starts. The program starts at this level, okay? So if you look at this, this is the definition of a function. It's not going to go there. When your program runs, it's going to start on line 33. And it's going to say, oh, there is a function called main that I have to call. And it looks for the function, and the function is on line 9. And it comes here and calls the function, and then the function starts executing. Now let's see if we can run this and see what we get. So it says, what is it that is something you consume daily? So maybe, how about M&Ms? Okay, let's put an M and M. Okay. How much consumed on a normal weekday? Maybe 6. On a weekend day, maybe 16. And it says, whoa, that's way too many M&Ms in 1 year. Okay, you can try and run it again. Like, make sure you run it a few times to make sure that all your, say we use paper. How much consumed on a normal weekday? 4, only 1 paper maybe. That's still way too many papers, it says. Okay, let's try something else. How about pretzels? Okay, maybe only 1 weekday and 0 on weekend days maybe. Okay, so that's a reasonable number of pretzels in 1 year. So all your if else is working. So just make sure all your conditions are working, that it's doing everything that it's supposed to do, that, it doesn't error out in case you have a division by zero problem or something like that. It's good to check everything and make sure all of those things are working well. So that's your sample.